Drama at Rivers State Legislative Quarters as Governor Fubara is denied access to the premises. The governor said he sent a letter and called the speaker over budget presentation but didn't get a response. It appears the imbroglio is actually far from over. NFCT Minister Wike blows hot, says nothing will happen if Fubara is impeached. Maintains threat to blow up pipelines by some judges if Fubara is removed is politically motivated. Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Yet again, Rivers has refused to leave the news, so we stay with it because the political development in that state, we thought by now, because of the Supreme Court judgment and decision, there should be some level of closure. But that closure appears to be far from over. Correspondence issues, perhaps ego game, and what has been playing out. We're going to break it down for you on two parts of the conversation. I'm going to be joined by some guests later on the show. But let me tell you first what happened in the nation's capital, where the president has just met with members of the Lagos State House of Assembly led by Speaker Mudashiru Obasa in the State House. The lawmakers had actually arrived in two buses, including the deputy, Mojisola Miranda, while the Speaker, Mudashiru Obasa, arrived separately some minutes later. The meeting, which is coming after a leadership crisis in the House, held behind closed doors. After the meeting, the lawmakers were seen singing joyfully, on your mandate we shall stand, and hailing the president as he walked off to his office. According to one of those who attended the meeting, everything has been resolved. Well, we don't have any official statement, but that's all we have for you. You're seeing on your screen that meeting between the president and the members of the Lagos State House of Assembly. Let's now take you to Rivers State, where the crisis, it's been an ongoing conversation for literally better part of the week since that Supreme Court judgment. Well, the governor had actually been denied access to the State House of Assembly complex. He arrived there to present the budget. The main entrance to the complex was locked, preventing his entrance. The development comes amid that political tension in the state following a recent Supreme Court judgment. He spoke at the end of that, whatever happened there. The governor revealed that he had officially communicated with the speaker that he was coming through a letter and had reached him, his deputy and others through phone, but he didn't get a response. Let's take a listen.
I'm here myself to comply with the Supreme Court judgment. Before my arrival, I've already made several attempts by phone call to reach the speaker and other members. I also did a letter personally which was transmitted to the Honorable Speaker for this particular invitation. But it's unfortunate that at the gates, you can see that the place is completely sealed and there is no sign that anything is going to happen today. The reason why we're doing this, I've always said it, is the interests of our people, which is the most important thing. Well, I don't think there's anything to worry about. Maybe they are working on their letter. I expect to hear from them maybe after this hour.
Well, while that was going on, almost simultaneously, literally as that was happening in Port Harcourt, the FCT minister was having his media parley, and he made very strong statement, literally, concerning the Rivers State incident. One of the things he said is to the effect that all of the issues about maybe some persons in the judge say they'll blow up the pipelines if Fubara is impeached. He said there are politicians behind all of this, that heaven will not fall if that happens. Let's take a listen to him.
What do you wait for? A response. That's why I tell you, sincerely, he should give. I tell you, he went to the gallery. He has kind television people. Now they say, oh, he went to the assembly. You know it's wrong. Can president now stand up and run to the assembly? Who does that?
Is that the best approach to lock him out of the complex?
The residents. He brought the assembly complex down. Assembly now sit in their residence. If they are coming, they have children. They say, governor's coming today. They have a lot of security. So they have to prepare themselves. You cannot just go and then open the gate and come to present budget. Nonsense. Rubbish.
All right.
Rubbish. Who's doing that? Play to the gallery. Nobody will hear that. If you have committed an offense to be peeled, what is wrong? Is it a criminal offense? It's provided in the Constitution. The point I'm making, if you have committed an infraction of the Constitution and assembly deems it fit to say you should be impeached, let me tell you, politics is not played just like this. Is it the first person that people have threatened about impeachment? Don't you know what to do? What is all these rule about that they will impeach? And let me tell you, and I have heard people say, oh, if they impeach him, there will be breakdown of law and order. Rubbish. Hold on, rubbish. Nonsense. Which is just
Coloration.
Rubbish. Tell me who are the militant? Who is not a militant? Who is born as a militant? No, tell me the person that's born. The day you were giving birth, they say you're a militant. Who is not a militant? Who cannot blow at the pipeline? Why do you arrogate this power to a certain group of people? It's just people are the only people who can blow pipeline. What nonsense is that? Who told the people cannot blow pipeline? Who told the people cannot blow pipeline? Who told the people cannot blow pipeline? Why do we arrogate powers to people? Who is the one doing the contract of the pipeline? Who is the one doing the pipeline contract? The sovereign. It's not a Johnson. It's not a Tompolo. It's not Antita. They gave you enough to do sovereign. You are the one correcting with the German. And they say Ijaw people are going to blow pipeline. And somebody will hear that.
So you're dismissing the threats?
Which threat?
Okay, so you heard it for yourself. As far as Nyesom Wike is concerned, nothing will happen. But those are not the only political stories we're tracking for. We'll get to the conversation, which is actually the conversation around Rivers State yet again. But let's bring you your political roundup stories.
The Supreme Court has dismissed 2 appeals by the Rivers State Attorney General and the Speaker of the House of Assembly, who are seeking to set aside the leave granted to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, to challenge an order prohibiting the investigation of Peter Odili's tenure as governor of the state. At the day's hearing, a 5-member panel of the Apex Court, led by Justice John Okoro, sought clarity on the case's substance. The appellant's lawyer told the panel that the matter was an interlocutory appeal challenging the Court of Appeal's decision to grant the EFCC leave to appeal the 2007 orders issued by the Federal High Court. But Justice Okoro interjected and advised all parties to return to the Court of Appeal to have the substantive appeal heard before proceeding to the Supreme Court. The appellate court granted the request, prompting the Rivers State Attorney General and the Speaker of the House of Assembly to take the matter to the Supreme Court. Security operatives comprising men of the Department of State Service, the police, and the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Force had a lot to contend with today as staff of the People Democratic Party Secretariat clashed with thugs and some loyalists of embattled National Secretary of the party, Mr. Samuel Anyanwu. The scuffle started when some members supporting Mr. Anyanwu came into the premises of the party and tried to lock out some members of the PDP National Working Committee who were resuming for their usual midweek meeting. The development led to the deployment of more security personnel to prevent further breakdown of law and order, paving the way for members of the National Working Committee to hold their meeting. Members of the People's Democratic Party PDP in Edo State are raising serious concern about what they describe as rising insecurity in the state and are asking the state's governor to be alive to his responsibilities as the chief security officer. Speaking at a news conference in Abuja, the convener of PDP Action Group in Edo State alleges that at least 40 residents of Edo State have been killed, with several others missing in the last 3 months alone. According to the PDP group, the security condition in the state is also forcing businesses to shut down.
This year alone, almost 40 Edo citizens and residents have been killed. Several others have been kidnapped and still haven't been found by their families or the police. Just last week, a young lady by name Uyi Ebohon was kidnapped in her home in Ekpoma, and her whereabouts is still unknown.
The Arawa Youth Assembly for Good Leadership is calling on the Senate President Godswill Akpabio to immediately reverse the suspension of the Senate representing Kogi Central, Natasha Akpoti-Oduagha. The group also threatened to block the Lokoja-Kaduna Highway as well as occupy the National Assembly if the Senate fails to lift the 6-month suspension placed on the Kogi senator. At a news conference in Abuja, the leader of the group, Abdul Dambature, explained that the group is prepared to engage in civil protest until their demands are met.
The Senate role is to uphold democracy, promote accountability, protect the rights of Nigerians. Instead, they are perpetuating a culture of impunity and silence.
Meanwhile, another group under the aegis of Arawa Revival Project has rejected the 48-hour ultimatum issued to Senate President Godswill Akpabio by Arawa Youth Assembly for Good Leadership to reverse the suspension of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduagha. The coordinator, Mr. Mukhtar Ibrahim, who stated this at a news conference in Abuja, called for a transparent and impartial investigation free from political interference and called on all parties to allow due process to take its course, ensuring accountability without undue pressure or sensationalism.
The book that Natasha was reading, I think, is a book of their rules, and her suspension followed from that guide, that book. So I see no way someone will capitalize because of his personal interest, imposing crisis to the society because of he got a punishment that he committed an offense.
I've been joined in the program as we explore what is playing out in Rivers State by Mr. Chinyere Igwe, is a former federal lawmaker and state lawmaker and former commissioner in the state. He joins us via Zoom, as well as Madam Ankyo Briggs, rights activist, also joining us via Zoom on the issue. Madam and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program. I appreciate you. Madam Ankyo, let's start with you and on your interpretation of what is playing out in Rivers State. Now, nobody really understands what exactly each party wants. There has been that back and forth as to correspondence. They actually had given the governor 48 hours, and then they sent a dispatch to that effect. They said it was rejected. The governor said they didn't see any dispatch. They wrote through the SSG, and they said it was demeaning. And now the governor said he wrote and made calls, no response, but the governor still showed up at this particular venue where they sit in their legislative quarters. What do you make of what is happening in Rivers State?
Are you referring to me?
Yes, madam, it's you. That question is for you.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, I wasn't sure. Good evening, Jeffrey. The truth of the matter is that we first and foremost have to ask ourselves in Rivers State, what is happening to the people of Rivers State by the activities of what has been going on in Rivers State. We have two gentlemen who are from the same political party. One ended up as the governor in 2023. There are issues between the both of them. Now, who is right and who is wrong? And how is it affecting the people of Rivers State is what everybody in Rivers State, who is a true son and daughter of Rivers State, should be asking. I mean, this is, it's just exacerbating what has been going on since October 2023. No one is telling us what went on, how it happened, and why we are still in this mess. This is totally unacceptable. The people of Rivers State are suffering. The former governor is living in Abuja, his life comfortably. The governor is here trying to govern the state, and the people of Rivers State are suffering. This is a classic case of when two elephants fight. This is what really and truly happens. We're tired. Let the right thing be done. The governor is the governor of Rivers State. The Federal Capital Territory Minister is the Federal Capital Territory Minister. The lawmakers have left their seats. Now they say they did it. Well, if they didn't, can the court please interpret what happened? calling on the federal payment system not to give River State government the money that it needs. Who are the people who are going to suffer by this action? It is still the people of River State. You saw what happened today. I saw what happened today. We're trying to get this thing resolved, but one party is not allowing anything to get resolved. I just saw the clip you played of the former governor, and I listened partly to the things that he has said. He constantly is referring to the ethnic nationality that Fubara emerges from. Before it was thunder, fire, Ijo people. Now it's all kinds of stuff. Is this governance?
All right, let me bring Ms. Egwe in. Ms. Egwe, I want your remark as well. What exactly should be done to go forward? Because right now we really don't know what the issues are. Some people are saying, since they didn't get the governor didn't get a response in terms of communication, like letter and also text messages and calls, they shouldn't have showed up at that venue. Do you agree to that effect? Because the gate was not open to him. He was denied access and I had to leave. Ms. Egwe, that question is for you. Ms. Igwe is for you.
Okay, so me, okay. Jeff, how are you?
I'm very well. Go ahead, please.
Good evening. Let's situate it correctly. This kind of remarks made by my auntie is a problem of River State. That is what is causing the crisis we are. Let me refer you back. Last year, the president was supposed to present the budget, but because the National Assembly did not resolve, he didn't present it on the day he's supposed to present. A new date was taken. You can't just walk into the chambers of parliament to present a budget without agreeing based on correspondence. Above that, you know that we have had a very attackerial situation in River State. In the past 1 year plus, we've gone to Supreme Court, did everything. Wanted to remove you, people wanted to remove you. You don't just go and say you want to present budget. You must clear the platform for engagement, to agree before you start going to present budget. That's just the truth. The governor didn't do well the manner with which he wanted to present the budget. He should have written to the assembly. All things being equal, the governor and the speaker need to meet. They are the two leaders in this crisis. They can agree. Okay, let's back on, be back on. Present your budget. Come and agree on the to present the budget. The parliament will now resolve to admit the governor to come and present budget. You don't just go and present budget. No, that's not parliamentary practice.
Now, Ms. Egwe, the problem here from where we sit and what we're observing, we don't know what is playing out between both sides, but it appears that nobody wants to receive anybody's communication. So if they are calling themselves and nobody is speaking, Madam Ankyo, maybe you go first on this one. If the governor is calling and nobody is speaking, his call according to what he alleged, what then is left on the table? Because he says he's still very willing to do what he has to do. Ms. Egwe, you come after she responds.
Okay. Well, you see, the truth of the matter is it has reached the point of childishness. This is just ego of people. The Rivers people are not going to put the ego of 27 lawmakers that left and said they didn't leave, and we're not going to cook that and eat. The reality is what we should follow. Look, the issue of whether they left or they didn't leave has not been resolved. The judgment they are dancing about in where they are is not a judgment that had anything to do with them. There is nothing in law that justifies that judgment. So every people are involved except the people of River State, outsiders. I want to say that, look, if you're not going to be part of the solution of River State crisis, that is not created by the people of River State, if I may add, created by members of the PDP party. They're both members of the PDP party. The lawmakers, the present governor, the past governor, unless if he has gone to APC. So if that be the case and we are the people suffering, can we please, my brother referred to me as Auntie Anne. Why did he refer to me as Auntie Anne? He doesn't hate me, he doesn't disrespect me. But we disagree on how River State is going, and we should disagree and discuss it. These are sons of River State that were elected by the people of River. Why are they treating the people of River State like this? The River State is not about the former governor. It is not about the present governor. It's about the people of River State. It's not even about the lawmakers. Who Who told the lawmakers that River State is about them? We must resolve this crisis. Yesterday, I was in the villa.
I was in the villa
in a meeting.
No. You are taking a very wrong picture in the role of this.
Ms. Egwe, just hold on. Let her land on her thought. Ms. Egwe, let her land. And Madam Ankyo, land on your thought.
I was in the villa of a meeting that was justified, qualified by the president. All of us were there. A small person and big people, we were all there. And we were treated, as far as I am concerned, the treatment we got there is not acceptable. But we were there for the sake of Rivers people. And the headlines of today's newspaper says very clearly what the response of the president was to us. He said we should go back and make peace. By the time some of us were landing in Port Harcourt from our flight this morning, we were seeing what was happening. The governor of River State is locked out of presenting the budget that they gave him ultimatum for. So look, people, these gentlemen and ladies that are involved in this mess, my brothers and sisters, this is not only your state. It belongs to us. It doesn't belong to PDP or APC. Let's stop this, please, before the state goes
all right, madam, let's take it to Ms. Egwe. Ms. Egwe, you wanted to respond. Let's hear you, please.
Yes, my sister is probating and reprobating. This kind of statement is what led us to where we are today. You see, believing that the lawmakers are not lawmakers, first is wrong. It had been decided by the Supreme Court. Until the Supreme Court decide itself, they are the lawmakers. We must accept that. That is one. Two, just like you're saying, when they are, how many Rivers people are in that group? If we want to do things right, we should come back home. Who are the Rivers people? Let us bring ourselves to the round table. But believing that because a particular ethnic group has gone for that, no, it's not right.
No.
I'm coming, please. Three. The last time Governor Fubara went to that place, he wanted to demolish that place. That assembly quarter. After demolishing the state assembly, their residential quarter wanted to demolish it. So you expect them to just keep their doors open and come and carry all of them away? No, let us be realistic. Let us come back and say, our sons, come back and see how we can make peace. Not play to the gallery. We are playing to the gallery as far as I'm concerned at this point in time. I'm a former lawmaker. I know what the law is.
So, Ms. Egwe, the question is, who is going to listen to who? The lawmakers say we sent a communication to the government house. The government sent it back to us. The governor said, I sent my letter. It was rejected. I called. Nobody answered. I showed up. It's like nobody wants to talk to. Who is going to be the big brother here?
My experience in government shows that if the executive wants to communicate to the legislature, the governor writes. The head of the executive writes. The president writes. You do not delegate that function. It's not delegatable. You cannot even delegate the secretary of the governor to the government to do that. First, that's a wrong mistake. Two, the governor went ahead and directed to the SEC chairman to start preparing for a local government election when there is no appropriation. From where we are going to get that fund to conduct that election? So you can say that ab initio, the governor has not decided to work together with the assembly member. Let him accept that these people are there. There's no gainsaying, believing what people like Auntie Anne says, that it has not been decided. I don't know where the Supreme Court want to decide again. We are waiting for that decision. But as a lawyer that I am, we will know that the Supreme Court has rested the matter of defection because there's no evidence to the effect that Mattis and the other lawmaker defected from PDP. But however, take everything into consideration. What has been fought, whether you like it or not, some people have lost their life in this crisis. It must be through a consensus adding to. Both parties must come together before we can make headway. The government don't just wake up and push the assembly quarters. I want to present budget. No, it's not done that way now. Let's be realistic. Is it because Martin is an equatorial man that this kind of sentiment is in place? No, it shouldn't be that way. No, let us follow the law.
All right, let me take it to Madam Ankyo. Let me take it to Madam Ankyo. Madam, so he has raised a fundamental point about process of communication. The argument had been that giving him ultimatum, maybe he's in a haste to now present the budget. But they said, in communicating with the legislature, you will write to the legislature, they will see your letter and even read it at plenary to expect the governor on whatever date is being agreed. For now, they feel that the governor is barging into their space. So I want you to give maybe your take on all of these arguments.
Okay, now, the first argument about representing the budget was the judgment on Friday 2 weeks ago. Now, the governor has accepted that he is going to represent the budget, which he did, attempted to do, to represent the budget. Excuse me.
Ms. Egwe, just hold on. Ms. Egwe, let her land, please.
Dr. Igwe, excuse me, please.
Ms. Egwe, just let her land, please.
He has attempted to do it. Now, the argument or the quarrel is that he didn't do it the right way. In the meantime, Rivers people are suffering for them to decide which way they believe is the right way for them. Now, the SSG wrote a letter. They referred to the SSG as an aide. The SSG is not an aide to the governor. He's the secretary to the government. Now, they said that's not good enough.
No.
That's not good enough for them.
To the governor.
Now,
it's not that it's not the process.
The governor has written a letter himself. He has made calls. Nobody took it. You quite rightly said maybe but they don't want to open it because they believe that the governor would attempt to break down the place or whatever the case may be. Well, those are all assumptions. And we all saw the governor.
Not assumption, it's a reality. It happened before.
We all saw the governor this morning. He was strolling to the gates of the assembly. He stood there. He made utterances that he has come. His letters have been written. If they want him to come back tomorrow, I think they should tell him. If they want him to come back next week, I think they should tell him. But to say that the governor should do it any other way, the president has said that they should do peace. Now, where is the peace going to come from if we are at this stalemate? You are now asking me a question, is it because Amehule is an Ikwere man? You see, this is the thing, but at the beginning, you asked, so I can also ask you, are these goings on because Fubara is an Ijo man? Is that why we're here?
All right, let me get back to Ms. Egwe. Let me get back to Ms. Egwe. Ms. Egwe, just a moment, madam. Ms. Egwe, let me come back to you as you're responding. The president had met with Pandef yesterday, and one of the charge he gave to them, he said he foresaw this crisis festering and escalating to this point. His intervention did not, de-escalate things, and is appealing to the leadership. Everybody should come to the table with Pandef in the lead this time, to talk to the governor and everybody involved so that the rule of law will be obeyed. So when the president has given that charge in his own space as a leader of the country, why is it difficult for the parties to come together? Nyesom Wike, the party here, Fubara, the governor here, Amewule, the speaker, everybody, and other leaders, people behind the scene. Why is it so difficult?
A loyalist of Fubara, a great
it doesn't matter where who belongs to. It's about how do we come together?
That is causing this crisis in this state. Now, Jeff, let me tell you, I want to disagree with Auntie Anne that Rivers people are suffering. That the crisis, the political crisis, has made Governor Fubara not to work. No. Governor Fubara has been enjoying his paraphernalia of office all this while. Governor Fubara collects his allowances, salary, and everything. His aides, from the secretary to the government, all of them, and even including the fake speaker, they were all collecting Rivers more. Rivers people, we didn't complain. We waited patiently. The Supreme Court had decided, even after the president tried to make peace, that we refused. Now, the Supreme Court has decided, if they remove the supporters of Governor Fubara, stop advising him on the route Auntie Anne is going, then we can have peace. Not when you approbate and you approbate, you think that the assembly members are not there, you're blaming Nyesom Wike. Everybody has supporters. This is politics. In politics, there must be support base, and your support base must keep on supporting you until we agree. Now, unfortunately for us, Biden Clark is dead. But before then, they set up a committee to see how to bring about peace. Did they make any move? Have we had anything that they have tried to reach Nyesom Wike or reach Governor Fubara to resolve this matter? Only now that Supreme Court has given the verdict for the rule of law to take place, equity and fair play to uphold, they are now rushing to the presidential villa. And Auntie Anne is saying that he didn't say anything.
Madam Ankyo, okay, maybe just respond because we're beginning to wind down this session. Ms. Egwe, you've made your point. Now, there's something I've noticed. It looks like even when we're having a conversation on air and off air, we're getting to find out what's happening. everybody is trying to say come together, but nobody is really doing the coming together. Madam Ankyo, you were at that meeting with the president. You are a live witness of what played out more than any of us right here. The president has made a call to PANDEF to say, speak to the governor, reach out to all parties involved, and bring peace. What is PANDEF going to do going forward?
First of all, let me correct a notion so that it's very clear. When PANDEF made contact, PANDEF decided in their new executives that one of the decisions they made before the death of Chief Ike Clark was that they will, as a Niger Delta body, try and make peace between the FCT minister and the governor of Rivers State. In that process, PANDEF came to Rivers State. They came to Port Harcourt. They visited. I am aware that they visited, or at least they spoke with my brother, OCJ. They also spoke with my uncle, Uncle Fedi Anabraba, in an attempt to reach the the Federal Capital Territory minister. When they came, they went to see the governor. He received them. Now, PANDEF is about the whole of Niger Delta. Ikwere people are in PANDEF. Ogoni people are in PANDEF. The youth leader of PANDEF is an Ogoni man. Now, the truth of the matter is PANDEF waded into the matter, wrote a letter to the president. And the president responded and gave a time for Tuesday after the death of Chief Ike Clark. We are in mourning of Chief Ike Clark, and yet the decision was made because of what PANDEF felt about the crisis of Rivers State. And we went to visit. There were definitely Rivers people there. The names, OCJ Okocha, I am aware, was invited. I'm also aware my uncle Fedi Anabraba was invited. Their ID accreditation cards were there. Their names were being called repeatedly at the venue of the accreditation. They didn't turn up. Now, it's their right not to turn up. It's my right to turn up. And I turned up on that meeting. And yes, the president said that we should go and make peace. That was yesterday.
Okay.
By the time we arrived, there is already another disaster. Now, to say that PANDEF has not made any move before this time is untrue. To say that it seems like it is only a set of people in Rivers State that feel aggrieved, that too is also not incorrect. Wait, let me learn. Now, in yesterday, to show you how serious we are, we were kept waiting in the villa by the president. PANDEF was kept waiting in the villa for over 1.5 hours. And we waited patiently, even though we had been accredited in the morning. We waited patiently until after 4. Then we were kept waiting in the villa close to 2 hours. It's ridiculous.
Wait. Not only 1 hour. When you go to brick house, you wait for 3 hours, you won't complain.
Mr. Igwe, you have just maybe 20 seconds. Let's wrap up the conversation. She's had us. Just 20 seconds. Mr. Igwe, just 20 seconds. Mr. Igwe, 20 seconds, please, just to wrap up the conversation. 20 seconons. Go, I have a commercial break.
Yes. Well, the conversation is engaging, but what I will appeal is that the supporters of Governor Fubara, like Auntie Ankyo, should change their perception. If you do not recognize Martin Samehule, it means that you are advising the governor not to recognize him. And Martin Samehule and his colleagues will be scared for their life. You can't just walk into their residence and expect them to open the door for you. It doesn't work that way.
I must
to go before Parliament.
I must come in at this time. My sincere apologies to you both. It's an ongoing conversation. I wish we had more time, but we need to take a break and continue the conversation in some other direction. But I must thank you, Madam Ankyo Briggs, rights activist and one of the leaders of PANDEF, Pan-Niger Delta Forum, also Chinyere Igwe, former federal and state lawmaker and former commissioner in Rivers State. Our prayer is that peace will be restored. Thank you, gentlemen and madam. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
We'll take a quick break. Now, when we come back, I'll be speaking with Professor Oke Ikechukwu. He's going to look at this political arena and issues of Godfatherism and the advancement or advantage to democracy. We're going to break it down in a different perspective. Join us in a moment. Welcome back. Joining us from our Abuja studios is Professor Oke Ikechukwu. He's a professor of strategic management and human capital development, writer, media professional, and executive director, Executive Specs Academy. Prof, thank you for coming on the program, Prof.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Prof, I know you can see all of the views as far as what is playing out. So there are two scenarios here, Prof. In Lagos, we saw what played out. And today, the president has actually met with members of the Lagos State House of Assembly when a speaker emerged and was removed again after 50 days Obasa was reinstated. Speaker Obasa was reinstated. And there seems to be calm right now. It's all part of, quote-unquote, political godfatherism. Now, in Rivers State, we have similar scenario when Nyesom Wike played a critical role in the ascension of Governor Fubara as governor. We're seeing a different scenario. Even with the Supreme Court judgment, there is chaos still going on. I want you to give perspective as to what the impact of political godfatherism does to stability of the polity and your views.
Before that, let me make a passing comment on, say something to the people of Rivers State. In my place, they say that when two brothers are fighting over a piece of land, none of them will go to farm on that land, because if you go to farm on it, your brother will come and uproot the things you've put there. If he does, you will uproot it. So for as long as you're quarreling, that farm will yield nothing. But if an outsider goes to farm there, they'll say, okay, it's not my brother's son, they leave it. In other words, it's only outsiders that will benefit from the land that belongs to you because two of you have chosen not to resolve your issues. Rivers people must ask themselves, how much of what is going on will benefit the people of Rivers, those who either took part in elections or are fishermen or whatever you choose to call it, because of the disagreement between individuals. And also the Rivers elite, whether the assembly section or the executive section or the judge, whatever, they should begin to pay attention to the fact that their resources are flying out of their state, sorting out people and institutions who are on one side or the other, but not benefiting the state. That's the central thing I would like to say, and then urge them to wake up and resolve the issues. Nobody's interested in this, all this. We know that the quarrels are unreal. Unreal in the sense that the real issue over which there's confusion in Rivers State today is not about development. It's not about whether the governor's policies are good or bad. It's not about whether the infrastructure is on. It's not about whether Rivers people are doing well. It's about individuals saying to each other, you either reckon with me or will bring the roof down. Both those threatening and those being threatened must be aware that if the roof comes down, none of them will come out. And if any of them is coming out, it's coming out on crutches. So I'll leave that, and I think that says a lot about it. It's disgraceful, and they should do something to take it off the radar. It is Rivers State that's losing. Money is flying out of the state to parties, third parties, whom some think would help them, etc. I'll leave it at that and go back to the substantive issue you raised, which is about Godfatherism. And I'll start by saying that there is nothing fundamentally or essentially wrong with Godfatherism. Sir Ahmadu Bello was a godfather, Awolowo was a godfather, Zeke was a godfather, Ekotiebo, many people from all over the country were godfathers. And the concept of godfather is discipleship. We have an ideology about development, about how to govern, about what is good for the people. We are now those running that ideology in the state. We want to breed other young men and women who will continue it after us. So Godfatherism is ideological, was ideological, has always been ideological, is still ideological all over the world. Today, in place of the ideological Godfatherism, you have what you might call a culture of nurturing burglars and putting them in public office to steal on your behalf after you've left, or to keep watch over what you've stolen, or to ensure that things keep flowing to you because they're the ones who put you. That's what is wrong. Not Godfatherism in itself. Nobody will be speaking of Bola Ige today. Many people in the north, in the southeast, in the south-south, in the middle belt, if they didn't have political godfathers, that's when Godfatherism was real. And to give context and etymological history to it, the whole concept of godfather has a religious root. If you are converted to Christianity, you are an adult. All those who became Christians were adults, who listened to Christ, became convinced, some were baptized. But then when it became a religion, you had churches, you are a Christian, you're giving birth to a child. Can your child who is ignorant, whose greatest skill is the ability to cry and feed, those are not skills with which he can say, I recognize the Lord and I'm a Christian. Therefore, initially, you became the godfather. You are the one allowing him to be baptized and saying on his behalf that I will train this child in Christian ways. But over these years, decades, the church discovered that, yes, parent as godfather or godmother was not very helpful because you're bringing up the child in prime Christian values, and then the child sees you quarreling with his mother, or the child sees you quarreling with the father, and so it became clear to the church that there was a disadvantage. So that's when the tradition changed, so that the godfather will be somebody from outside the family. That's why, going back for those who have that background, you recall that when we were kids, you hear that Edward was sent to his, was reported to his godfather, and the godfather came to the house, listened to the case, and flogged him thoroughly before the parents, took him along, and he spent the weekend with him and came back. So godfathering is about nurturing a better future generation based on some values that are sustainable. So it's nothing wrong in itself. Now, what we have is a bastardization. The use of the word godfatherism, but actually that's not what is going on, because loyalty is not to your godfather, but to a doctrine. If your godfather is a Marxist, and he begins to introduce non-Marxist principles, he is no longer your ideological godfather in Marxism. Now, in the case of our environment, replacement of individuals by loyalists for reasons other than public good and ideology is what is happening. So when you put somebody and he's not playing ball, as they say, you get angry and you say, no, I'll get rid of him. He's not grateful. We know how these things work. Even those who ought to, as elder statesmen, to call two of you to order and say, listen, have a bit of shame. This state doesn't belong to you. And you that took over, find out how to navigate all of this. No, they're saying, yeah, somebody helped you to climb. How can you go there and lock the tap? First of all, he's not the owner of the water supply department. The water supply is meant for the people living in the building, and you're putting only his bucket to collect half of the water. Meanwhile, he's moved out of the building. So the distortion of godfatherism is the crisis. And it's not about Rivers State, Edo. Every single state practically has had the same story of you didn't behave well or you're quarreling with your godfather, because the godfather, somebody gets in as governor, he tries to run the state, he discovers he can't. Anambra State, my own state, at a point had to keep the schools, all schools, closed for nearly 2 years because there was no money to pay teachers after godfathers had done violence to the state treasury. 2 years. Let's even assume it's just 1 year, and nobody walked about embarrassed. The godfathers were still triumphant. They were still collecting money from people in order for them to go for various offices. That is what I mean. That a state, children, the future of a nation was buried because some individuals helped somebody to rig an election and become governor. And to that extent, they describe it as an investment which they must recover. So I must recover my investment. This is like what they call harvest season for us. So what are you talking about? That's the issue on the table. That is the disgrace of leadership in Nigeria today. That's the embarrassment nobody acknowledges. And that's where you find the failure of both tradition and religion. That religious leaders who ought to drive higher values remain silent where core issues of existential crisis appear. Only when you hear about appointment that one religion will say, no, you have not appointed our people. The disgrace also rests squarely on the head of the clergy all over the Federation.
All right, Prof, let me come in here. There's a lot to unpack, which is why we brought you to give a very broad intellectual perspective to what is playing out across board, not just the Rivers State, but in this case, Rivers State is a case on the table. And I want you to speak to rhetorics that we see and lobbying tact, if you will. Some have said that Governor Fubara needs to improve on his lobbying tact. In fact, Nyesom Wike alluded to that effect that is playing to the gallery, and this is further escalating things. On the other hand, if you hear some of the rhetorics by Nyesom Wike, the FCT minister himself, borderline, perhaps disparaging, cheeky, and even impugning. He said things like, he called the governor a boy this morning a couple of times, describing this Rivers State High Court as the worst, PANDEF, perhaps worst organization, and some of these rhetorics that some people have considered inflammatory and even sensitive to ethnic sensibilities. How should leaders conduct themselves when the temperature is this high? Because what is going on, the rhetorics may not be helping the situation. How can you help here, Prof?
Well, rhetorics can only worsen the situation because rhetorics, when it's directed as mischief, name-calling, and self-justification, it can only inflame passions. The question now is, the statements of Wike, are they leading to greater understanding? The statements and actions of Fubara, are they leading to greater understanding? Are we sure both parties are being well advised? If Wike has called him a boy, he's not a boy. That's, for me, if you say today I'm a boy, look, Prof, you're a boy. You've just told a lie, and I don't need to have a headache because of that. So also, leaders must also develop a certain, you don't have to answer back on anything. But I go back to the original point. Fubara must ask himself, how much of what I'm doing will address the issue of peace, which I say I'm interested in, and serve the interests of Rivers people? Wike must also ask himself the same question. Should I focus more on showing who is the top dog, or on the fact that what I'm doing is also impacting the state in very fundamental ways? Because whether we like it or not, there is also the subsisting unconscious mentoring of a future generation. If I'm from Rivers State and I'm thinking of politics and I don't have very strong moral values, I'll be looking at these two men to see who is the tougher of them, to adopt those politics, to adopt the policies and approach and tactics without paying any attention to values of right and wrong. That is the full crisis on the table. Now, the issue needed is peace. Peace is not the same as silence. Peace is not the same as stupidity. There are clear legal, political, and to some extent, ethnic issues involved. From the legal angle, the judgment of the Supreme Court is on the table. The governor says he's doing something about that. From the political angle, there are people who are desperate to retain the advantages they have and probably deepen it, and probably remove whoever is in their way, including Fubara. From the ethnic angle, there's a crisis of how will the judge take it if this matter goes the way it's going. What I think, looking at all the variables on the table, is that most of the people involved are not looking at the possibility of an implosion. Niger Delta is Niger Delta. The insurgents or militants or whatever you call them, they are still there. Yes, some of them are now doing fat contracts and therefore they are no longer making trouble. But there are others who can aspire to make trouble. In a volatile environment, you have what you call unpremeditated opportunistic criminality, where somebody decides, oh, it's because our brother is now governor that they are making trouble. Without consulting his brother, without consulting his sister or the association, he decides to go and bomb one location or one facility. And then it's escalation. Those who are locking up this assembly and speaking grammar from behind the gates, do they realize how vulnerable they are? Are they aware that in this country today, once you're driving an air-conditioned car, let's not say it's an SUV, you run the risk of being murdered on the road, assuming a riot breaks out. Because for you to look comfortable, the assumption you're the ones eating Nigeria's money. I use that colloquial expression. So this grandstanding is not taking anybody anywhere. They are living an illusion. There are no rich men in Nigeria, no matter how you choose to look at it. You've gone to the National Assembly, you've picked up a few, or State Assembly, you have a few 100 million, so 1 or 2 billion to your name. You're living in comfort with security, and then you begin to imagine you're safe. You begin to imagine that no matter what you say or what you do, nothing can happen to you. Are they paying attention to those who have held those positions in the last 15 years, even in the last 4 years? Former senators, former House of Rep members, former House of Assembly members, including former governors, most of whom have no forwarding address today, that this is a tenured engagement and that life is about continuity after that tenured engagement. So Rivers people should pull themselves together. If you're talking Godfatherism in Rivers State, Wike should ask himself what image of Godfatherism he's projecting. Fubara should also ask himself what image of what image of a follower, a disciple am I projecting with my quarrel, on my quarrel with Wike. I have no interest in either of the parties being right or wrong, but the interest is in public good, national good. The reduction in the devastation of values that hold the people together. For now, those values are being pounded in a mortar.
Prof, there is another point. What appears to be, whether it is real or cosmetic logjam occasioned by this back and forth defective communication. Oh, you're supposed to do this. Oh, you rejected this. Going forward, I've asked the parties involved. Everybody keeps saying, this person should be this person should do that. But nobody seems to want to meet. Nobody has been able to meet the other person, either through phone call, at least what is available in the public, phone call, letter, or any means. It's all kinds of controversy just by, since the Supreme Court judgment, correspondence has been a problem for about a week. Correspondence. Prof, how do we get out of this logjam? Because the Rivers people are the ones at the lower end of all of this that are suffering.
The issue is this. Parties have taken extreme positions. Not only have they taken extreme positions, they are convinced that their positions are right and that they don't need to make any shift. This man is saying this guy must bow. The other one is saying this one must bow. We need to get rid of this person. You're not looking at the long-term effect. You're not looking at the full-blown consequences. The solution is simple. State your extreme position and then state your maximalist and minimalist position. My extreme position is that Governor Fubara should be removed. Some people are saying that. My minimalist position is that he should meet with us and give 1, 2, 3 concessions. Fubara says, my maximalist position is that this will not happen. Maybe the lawmakers will not come back. My minimalist position is that if they are coming back, it will be on those terms. Now, both parties meet. The first thing they do will be to throw away the maximalist position. No, how can you say the governor will go? He's thrown off the table. And you say, no, how can you say all this? You remove that. You now begin to negotiate the details of your minimalist position. Okay, I'll take point 1, but point 2 is difficult. This is what I think about point 2. The parties are hoping to come out 100% triumphant. That is folly. It will not happen. Because if any of the two parties wins comprehensively, there will be too much fire under the seat they want to sit. If you bury all the interests of Wike completely, there are hostile, dependent forces that will not sleep and will not allow you to sleep. If you bury all the interests of Fubara in this matter, including that of his supporters, you will have no state to govern. I believe the objective is to have a state to govern. I believe the reason why Wike handed over was that he was hoping a governor will continue to govern the state. He did fantastic infrastructure in River State. Since he came to Abuja, you don't recognize some areas, places you didn't know there should be road. I don't know where he got his master plan for. If not for any, just the condition of Abuja today, nobody will see it and not say this man is doing something. But what is happening in Rivers does not do him any credit. So my take is simple. Both parties should not strive to win. Both parties should find accommodation for each other. They should find out what deals others can live with, provided it serves the interests of the state. They should also look at so many possibilities, like when the judgment of the Supreme Court came out, and Fubara said he was going to implement it, and he said that the local government caretaker committee chairman, I think, should hand over to those in charge, to the officers there. I looked at it. Is it possible for the governor to generate enough resources from River State to govern the state? To an extent, there will be more than enough of that. You have the local government chairmen who were removed over 10 years ago, reinstated by the court, saying they are coming back. So there are too many things in this pot. If you're making a goosey soup, there are ingredients that make a goosey soup. If you're making a goosey soup and you have all the ingredients of a goosey soup, and you have the grenade, you have some knockout, you have some carbide, it's going to explode, and they shouldn't let that happen.
Perhaps, Prof, your point, we can just keep listening to your perspective. Very brilliant submissions you've made on as a political resolution beyond what after obeying what the court has said. Because as a people, if you ask the average Rivers person, they can just hazard a guess as to what is really the problem. Everybody is just hazarding a guess. But we must thank you, Prof, for coming on the program. I appreciate your perspective on this very controversial issue. Professor Oke Ikechukwu, Professor of Strategic Management and Human Capital Development, writer, media professional, and Director, Executive Specs Academy. Prof, thank you. We appreciate you, sir.
Thank you very much.
And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzanga. Good night.